One thing I did want to ask is about. I'm pretty sure I've seen you. Correct me if I'm wrong. That as well as doing the news and radio stuff, like you also do some more popular like shows, and you've even done some ones in Mandarin. Did you do? Is it like a documentary series that you did in Mandarin?
So I do a lot of programs. So as I mentioned, we have 12 channels. So every day I broadcast the news in English for our radio station and our television station. But we also have entertainment programs, and they're all in Mandarin or Cantonese. So I do like all kinds of shows. I do kids shows sometimes. I do travel shows sometimes where we travel around Guangdong. Studio programs. I just all these different kinds of shows. Every day is different, and sometimes I find myself in some pretty interesting situations, and I ask myself, what am I doing here? But it's all good.
What's the weirdest show you've done? What's the strangest show you've ever done?
The strangest show? I did a series where we documented lots of rural places in Guangdong, and so I spent a night with a chicken farmer, which was interesting.
Laying eggs.
Helped him feed the chickens and collect the eggs, and there were a lot of eggs to collect. I also spent a night on a fishing boat, and that was actually because I've had quite a few bloopers over the years with my presenting, and that's probably the most memorable one because obviously I interviewed the captain of the fishing vessel, and I asked him, what is the name of your ship? And he replied, fishing ship. And it just, in Chinese, obviously, but it just cracked me up, and I just I just thought it was hilarious, such a creative name. Fishing boat, and you called it fishing boat. And I couldn't stop laughing for about 5 minutes. I had to compose myself and continue with the interview.
How
and I smelled like fish for about 10 days after that.
Nobody likes that, do they? So how good was your Chinese when you first started doing Mandarin broadcasts?
Terrible.
Really?
I thought it was a lot better than it actually was. I think a lot of people in Australia that study Mandarin and then go to China quickly realize that we have a lot of catching up to do once we get to China, because it's tough. It's tough to learn a second language here in Australia when there just really isn't the environment to immerse yourself in the language.
You would have felt that. Alex went to China after a year and a half of doing university level from beginners Chinese.
Yeah. So I did basically the same kind of a similar thing to what you did, except I was in my last year of university and I had 2 electives left. So I thought I might as well try and learn something rather than actually, doing some diet and nutrition subject that I'm never going to use again. So then I picked up Mandarin, and it ended up, the Mandarin, I did beginners and then intermediate, and it ended up taking up just as much time as all my finance subjects. It was so intensive and it was so hard. And then, about 6 months after I finished the intermediate, I went over to Shanghai after not practicing, basically in that whole period. And so I had to basically learn the whole thing again. So hard.
And so, with all the different dialects and the different accents in China, for example, I live in Guangzhou, and then whenever I go to Beijing, it takes me days to sort of adapt to the accent up in Beijing because it's so different to how people speak on a daily basis in Guangzhou. So,
I was watching your video you did of the day in the life where you go to the traffic control place and there's the traffic control general manager, and he's got he had a funny accent as well that I found hard to understand for a bit as well.
Yeah.
Um,
And also,
now,
it's interesting too because in Guangzhou, there's in Guangdong province, there are a lot of people that speak Cantonese as their first language, and there are a lot of people who may be slightly older who never really had proper training in Mandarin. So sometimes it's a little bit tough to understand what they're trying to say. But at the same time, it makes you feel comfortable as a second as somebody who's speaking Chinese as a second language, because you know at the same time that you're not perfect either. So,
well, what would you say to the struggling white people in Australia trying to learn Mandarin, and from someone who's got to the other side of it, people going through the struggle, what would you say to them?
I'd say I'm still going through the struggle, but don't give up. Don't give up, because we need more Mandarin speakers here in Australia. We need, in Australia, we need, whether it's Mandarin or Indonesian or Korean or Japanese, we need more speakers of Asian languages, because we are positioned in Asia. Look at a map. Our closest neighbors are Asian nations, and we need to be able to communicate with them meaningfully. So if you're struggling, if you're finding it hard, just remind yourself that learning these languages is something that you're doing for your country as well. I mean, it's preparing our country for a future where we will need to try and engage better with our region.
Yeah, I like that. And maybe we can get into that a bit later on, because that was one thing I was quite sad about, was a range of governments and universities stopped offering your Confucius institutes, and I just mean it's way harder now for people to learn Chinese in Australian schools. But
no, it's great to be in the Carnage house. I love a bit of Carnage.